we did a study, Josh. An excavator, for every hour it's broken down, it costs $10,000, and that's adding in labor burden and all of those things. $10,000 an hour. They
Wow.
really don't care about a couple $1,000 service call to get that piece of equipment up or going.
Welcome to the Tracer Podcast, your inside track to all things franchising. We provide essential resources for anyone in the franchising world. Let's get into it.
And welcome to the Tracer Franchising Podcast. I'm Josh Emison, where this podcast is where I speak to great franchisors and franchisees to hear about their experience and learn the insides of franchising so you can get smart in the industry if you're thinking about buying a franchise yourself. Today, I got Mark Cox with Pirtek. It's a very niche industry that he's in. It's B2B. It's needed service. It's one of those things you don't really think about. So it's cool. I appreciate you being here, Mark.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Josh.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, let's just start a little bit about you, right? Like, how did you get to working at Pirtek, and before we get into the franchise?
Sure. Yeah. So a little bit about me. I was actually a business owner. I bought into full landscape design service through Neighborly Brands, and it was the grounds guys. So
Yeah.
I've had first-hand frontline experience being a business owner. Fortunately, we were able to build it up a little bit and sell it to another neighboring grounds guys owners, and I pursued the franchisor side of things. And then coincidentally, the gentleman that sold me my grounds guy business is now my boss and a good friend of mine, John Doublebaur. So kind of worked out that way. And yeah, that's definitely a gratifying role, leading people through potential business ownership. So very enjoyable.
Very cool. And for those listening who I've told, they're always like, I want to buy a profitable franchise. It goes to other franchisees, right? So, you get in, you kind of stake your claim into a franchise. And if you want to grow through acquisition, you kind of already have to be in this side of the system. Okay. So tell me about Pirtek, in like 30 seconds so people know what it is, but really like how it's a very old company, right? So I'd love to hear kind of how it got to where it is today.
Yeah.
And the background.
Yeah, absolutely. So Pirtek was founded in 1980 in Sydney, Australia. Today, we have well over 600 locations. We're spread over 24 countries. As of this morning in the United States, we have 200 markets. And so we've been franchising in the United States for 27 years now. Concept, pretty straightforward and simple. Anything that moves up, down, left, or right, powered by hydraulics, that's our clientele. Obviously, the construction industry is really big, but if you go further, you start talking about recycling, waste management, agriculture, industrial, in some parts of the country, oil and gas, quarry work, all of these things that are relying upon hydraulics is who we service. And essentially, pretty straightforward too. What we do, we eliminate downtime and we get businesses up and operating.
Very cool. Yeah. And I, getting ready for this, I was telling my wife about Pirtek, and we had to go to our dentist checkup or whatever, and I was like, hydraulics, so it's kind of, again, one of those things you don't really think about it, but it's everywhere. Okay, so talking about the industry, right? You hit it's a lot of different verticals, right? How big is it, right? How, like, in dollars and cents,
Yeah,
how big is it?
Yeah, the industry itself, and this is just in the United States, the industry itself, it's a $1.8 billion industry, the hydraulic hose businesses. When you add in the larger size hoses, industrial size hoses, it doubles. It's like a $3.6 billion industry.
Wow.
Last year, Pirtek, over 150 million in sales. But let's just use round numbers. That's still 8-9% of the market share. And we're the largest player in this space. So it tells you that overall, the industry is still relatively fragmented, right? And we were the category creator of the mobile hydraulic hose repair. And I always like touching on that, the industry and our market share, because it gives you just a snapshot of the future potential profitability in this space. And I think you hit on it early on, Josh, when you said it is a necessity. It's essentially a recession-resistant business that services other recession-resistant businesses. It's something that AI is not going to replace. So obviously a need for it. And you're right, hydraulics are everywhere you look. Um, Dentist office is a great example. There's several stories about some of our owners working on a huge boom and repairing busted hydraulic hoses. And then the next call, in fact, was at a dentist office where they're replacing the hydraulics in the dentist chair. So they really are all around us.
Yeah, I think it's important, kind of what you noted, right? Was that when you're servicing other businesses, your your cyclicality is based on theirs, right? And so if you're only serving, say, the construction industry, well then, you're going to go up and down with the construction industry. But if you touch on multiple different fragments, um, then you have the ability to kind of shift and be versatile when things are changing in the environment.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah, cool. Okay, so when we talk about servicing these things, right? Is this you only go when something breaks? Is it annual checkups? Are you selling them new parts? Like, what does this actually mean when you're saying you're
Yeah.
servicing hydraulics?
Yeah. So, we have statistics that show that when a company calls a Pirtek to get out there and fix a hydraulic hose, it's an 85% chance that they're going to continue to call Pirtek to service them. So you think of it initially as it's an emergency repair service, and it is, but the amount of businesses in the markets that we have that our owners represent, it's never ending. Hydraulic hoses are always going to break on machines,
Hmm.
whether it's a forklift, whether it's a dentist office chair, or whether it's this excavator in the background, it's always going to break. So it does, emergency business leads to repetitive business, but it also leads into preventative maintenance. And very common for our owners to get in with a company, whether it's one of our national accounts, which I'll touch on that in a little bit as well. But say, hey, 3 times a year, 4 times a year, inspect our equipment. I want you guys to repair the hoses that are busted, tag the hoses that are close to going going away, or just simply repair them. So we do have a lot of preventative maintenance programs around as well.
Okay, great. And then hydraulic hoses. The other thing that's similar, and I always want to ask you this, was
Mm.
the compressed air industry also requires a bunch of hoses.
Yeah.
Do you touch on these other industries that are close, or is it purely hydraulic?
No, it's anything related to industrial or hydraulic hoses we service.
Okay.
Now, those are larger size hoses. There's a lot of money in those as well, and they go. And you think of water hoses, and like you mentioned, air hoses, um, material handling hoses, food and beverage hoses, composite hoses. I mean, so it is endless, and it is more than just the hydraulic hoses.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I was just looking at the compressed air industry recently, and it's much bigger than you would expect, right? So Pertec actually is much bigger than just the numbers you were quoting earlier, because that's just hydraulics.
Correct.
Um, yeah. Okay.
And one thing to add too, we can get into our owners get into any related field of the hydraulic hose business, industrial hose business. So we have a lot of owners that do cylinder repair because it's related to the hydraulic. So yeah, there's different ways that you can increase profitability, increase your revenues through things just associated with the industry that we're in.
Okay, very cool. So now we have a pretty good idea of what the franchise is, right? Let's walk through. I like to do this a customer journey, right? So how does a customer go from not knowing about Pertec? What's really nice about you guys is it's not a business where people don't know they have a problem, right? Because then you have to educate them about their problem, and then you have to convince them, right? With this, it's like my thing worked, now it doesn't work, right? But you have to get them to pick you. So take them from that to the service to getting paid, like the whole journey.
Yeah. So, really before our owners enter a market, we start inundating that market with advertising from Pertec USA on a national level into the market prior to the owner even coming into the market physically. So that's one way. So we're building up our searchability, we're building up our brand awareness. When a Pertec is in a market, and you could look throughout the United States, we're going to come up number one or number two in the search with anything related to hydraulic hoses. The other thing too, I think I mentioned it earlier. We have a relationship with like 70 national accounts, which is unique. And they're very large national accounts like Herc and Penske, and
Oh,
United
wow.
Rentals and Sunbelt Rentals. The list goes on here. Typically, what that means is when our owners get into a marketplace, one, when they get into a marketplace, they have a warm introduction. They're physically meeting all of the national account representation that we have in that particular market. So that resonates and that goes a long way. And that's generally when our owners start out the lower hanging fruit, right? So they're aware of the relationship that they have with Pirtek on a national level. And they're very aware of the other locations throughout the country that partner with a Pirtek and with the reliability of a Pirtek operation. And then obviously we have the CRM that's constantly identifying businesses, being able to get in front of those businesses. Also, it's more of a visibility sale than anything, right? So it's not one of those things where we're going in and doing a full-blown needs analysis and figuring out pain points and weaknesses and what their business is trying to do, much like a corporate background, kind of lends itself to what we do. We eliminate downtime, we get businesses up and operating. Majority of the time, it's cultivating that relationship, growing it, and essentially asking for the business. And that's predominantly how our owners, when they get into a market, will increase customer base and market share.
Okay. And so, to put that into like layman's terms, right? If I'm an owner, I need to be comfortable cold calling, like walking into people's offices and saying, "Hey, you know, your things have hydraulic hoses or whatever. I can be out here in an hour. I'm part of a 600, large thing, so you should trust me more than Joe Schmo." Like, what is that like? Literally, what does it look like?
Yeah, and it's twofold, right? These techs that are in these vans that are out repairing the hydraulic hoses, they're called MSSTs, mobile sales and service technicians. Now, immediately you're thinking, if I hire somebody who's mechanically inclined, it's very unlikely that they're going to have any type of skills in or really good skills in sales, right? So what our owners will do is in between jobs throughout the day, they will establish businesses where these techs will stop in to introduce themselves. And it's really, hey, I'm Mark with Pirtek. We're in the market. We have mobile service. We'll come out and fix your piece of equipment. Here's my owner's call, or here's our general manager's, or here's our general manager's phone number. Give us an opportunity. So we're identifying clients that way, getting in front of them. And then a lot of our owners, if they're not doing it themselves out in the field, they have what we call a technical sales representative who's out in the field cultivating and leveraging that relationship too. So it's a lot of visibility combined with the marketing efforts, combined with the credibility when these businesses are starting servicing those large national accounts, because that resonates and goes a long way to these other businesses that may be a little bit smaller. But hey, they're doing work for Sunbelt all the time or United Rentals all the time. They must be a pretty reputable company. Let's give them an opportunity.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. The national accounts always helps.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Okay. And so, all right. So you have customers. They call you. Um, you guys go out and service it mobily, or are they getting paid on the spot? Is it net 30, 60, 90? Like, what does that look like?
It's generally 30 days. And
30
they
days.
will be invoiced. So they'll invoice the clients, and really the owner sets that up too, right? Now, we do have some national accounts that are 60 days net. But the majority of it's 30 days and their invoice. Now we also do obviously have the ability to go out and take payment on site, right? So if it's a smaller job, maybe it's a couple O-rings and maybe a repair of a hydraulic hose. We do have the option to take credit card info as well.
Okay. Cool. And then the other piece that this always makes me think of is like, hey, I'll be there in an hour, right? And I don't know, it's got to be like this, maybe not on this scale, but one of my sisters works in oil and gas services.
Yeah.
And it's like, if a rig doesn't work, they're losing like $1 million an hour or something, right? So they're like, get here now. It's 2:00. Like, you better be here, an hour ago. So like, I imagine it's got to be like that for this too, right? So what happens when you get a call at 2:00 in the morning? Is the owner,
Yeah.
rousing his technicians? Like, what's happening?
No, so what the owners typically do is they'll stagger or alternate what tech would be on call for after hours that week or after hours that weekend. And a lot of owners have a call center. So when the call comes in, that call center will identify the location of the equipment that needs service, and it automatically goes to that particular tech that is on call, and they'll go out and service that piece of equipment. You
Oh, nice.
would
So the owners aren't taking that call at 2
No,
o'clock.
they're not. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. The owners aren't taking the call. It's the techs that actually take that phone call, and then
Okay.
they'll handle the service call from there. You would think, because we are a 24/7, 365-day business, you would think, oh my gosh, there's going to be after hours, nights, weekends, emergency calls. It's really not as many as you would think. Um, Now, whenever you have those large contractual jobs through the state or the county, and they're going to get fined. So, yes, that's an example where this piece of equipment behind me needs to be up and operating immediately. But it does not happen as much as you think. And then when it does happen, there's some pretty good profit tied behind that call, too. And that business knows, and they're willing to pay it to get that piece of equipment up and operating.
Yeah, sure. Because they're losing more, right, by having it not operating. Yeah.
We
Yep.
did we did a study, Josh. An excavator, for every hour it's broken down, it costs $10,000, and that's adding in labor burden and all of those things. $10,000 an hour. They
Wow.
really don't care about a couple $1,000 service call to get that piece of equipment up and going. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay. I mean, and so this is simple, right? This is a simple business. It's needed. You have a national brand. You have national accounts.
yeah.
You do need some working capital if you're not getting paid right away, right? To pay your guys while they're operating. So I guess the next big question that comes to mind is, are there just like a bunch of hydraulic hose maintenance guys looking for work, right? How are these employees? How are you finding them and making sure they can do the work?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. First of all, we have a third-party employment software called Career Plug. Career Plug goes out to all the major job boards. Very effective in getting qualified candidates in. Where they come from, definitely you want a mechanically inclined individual in that position. We have a lot that come from the oil change industry, a mechanic background. Military is a big one. The skill trades is a big one. And we say this jokingly, but righty tighty, lefty loosey, if you could comprehend that, you have a pretty good chance of being a tech. It's not overly difficult to learn. Um, we can get into the support in a little bit, but we train all techs in Rockledge, Florida. We don't charge for that. We can train techs all year round. So there are a lot of resources, even digital resources, online continuing education for these techs. But that's where they're found. It is interesting to know, too. We have 8 owners in our network right now throughout the United States that started out as MSSTs. I believe we have 2 or 3 in our corporate office in Rockledge, Florida, that started out as MSSTs
Oh, that's
too.
cool.
My point behind this, generally these techs are paid pretty good. They make a pretty good living. It's not uncommon for some of them with tenure and with experience to provide a pretty good living for themselves and or their families, making 6 figures a year. So because of the way it's compensated. So they get a competitive hourly rate, but these owners will also bonus them based on examples such as, if your van brings in 25 or 30,000, these are hypothetical numbers, 25 or $30,000 this month, we're going to compensate you X amount. And then incrementally, your bonus will go up. So there's opportunity for these techs to make pretty good income.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And that's something. So in the franchise that I own, it's all part-time.
Uh-huh.
And, I wish so bad that we could pay them full-time, right? But we just don't make enough. It's kids dance, right? Like you're only open, a couple hours a day. So having the ability, I think, to give your employees that kind of lifestyle is amazing.
Sure.
Um,
Absolutely.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay. Um, So then let's talk about the owner, right? So the owner's
Yeah.
not fixing pipes, right? So maybe they're doing some sales calls, and the life of an owner looks different, day after you open, a year after you open, 3 years after you open. So can you kind of take us through the stages that you see owners go through this business? And assuming owner operator, right? I think for something like this, I, I'm not a big fan of the whole semi-passive thing, right? I tell people if they want to build a business, go build a business, right?
Yeah. No, it's a great question. The majority of the folks that do come into business ownership, they do start out as owner operator. Their responsibilities obviously is seeing the overall operations of the business, but they will put themselves in a sale role and be the face of that organization. Um, Maybe their sales skills, admittingly so, are not as strong. Maybe they're just very good operators. So now you have operators that will come in and hire the technical sales rep that I told you about. But yes, so they're scaling their business, they're growing their business. Ultimately, they're going to have a general manager in that market. The average owner owns two markets, by the way. It is not uncommon for folks come in here and purchase up to four markets at a
Wow.
time. And so to do that, you have to have a strategy in place, get cash flow going, get profitable, put a GM in that, go on to the next. In fact, our largest owner in our system owns eight locations. He owns all of Chicago. He owns Philadelphia and Virginia Beach. He's been franchising with Pirtek for 27 years, as long as we
Yeah.
have been franchising in the United States. So I say all that to say, yes, predominantly it's owner operator, but then they're going to fill roles as necessary. But it does lend itself to come in as that. We don't call it a semi-absentee owner. We call it an engaged investor because you're never absent from your investment of a business, right? Usually, folks that come in that model have already identified a general manager, so they can keep their W-2 job. They have a trusted person that's running their operations, but it can happen. But predominantly, it is owner operator that come into the system.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you know someone, it's your brother or your cousin or whatever, right? Like that's different than you got some guy off Indeed, you know? Um, so for sure. Okay. So, um, how long is it until usually someone's starting as an owner operator to hiring the GM?
I think it's going to vary from owner to owner. It's
Yeah.
going to vary about, we always say it really, obviously we can't speak net profitability or net numbers because that's always contingent upon the owner. Are they paying themselves an exorbitant salary, or are they reinvesting back into the business or taking a nominal salary? That all those things are going to determine cash flow and when they can put a GM in spot. So I would say it's kind of all over the board. Um, Not uncommon for that to happen within the first year of business, though, because they'll get that territory up and going, get it profitable, and then they're typically looking for another market to put a developmental agreement and grow that market. So it usually does happen pretty quickly.
Okay. Nice. And how big is a market?
Yeah. So when we define markets, here's a couple pieces of criteria go into it. So the first thing we look for is from one end of the market to the other, roughly about an hour drive time. A lot of that's going to depend on density too, right? So that's one aspect that we look at. The big reason why is we want to do everything we can to make our requirement of an hour response time or less. And as candidates come through the system, they're going to get a quick understanding of how important that is because customer service in this space is significantly lacking. So if we can get to a client in an hour or less, that gives us credibility. So we're always looking to have superior customer service. That's one aspect. The other thing that we look for within that geographical location of that market, roughly 2 to 3,000 businesses that already exist that are in the industrial space that have a potential need for hydraulic hose repair. So we're identifying those. And then lastly, which is huge, and we touched on it earlier, national account representation. And as I mentioned, when you have that national account representation, these Pirtek businesses have a quicker start and sustain revenue by partnering with those national accounts. So the three criteria that go into markets, that would be the criteria
Okay.
there.
And do you have data, and I don't know if you can share it or not, if like the average uh business that you do, I get a client, they spend on $10,000 with me on average a year, $50,000, or is it just
Yeah.
all over the board?
Yeah. So I could speak to gross from our item 19. Right now, all of our markets in the United States, a little over $1 million a year in gross revenue, right? 5+ years, which we classify as mature businesses, little bit shy of $1.4 million per market. Remember, the average owner owns 2 markets. It's not uncommon to own 3, 4, 5, 6 markets, etc. So yeah, very strong gross numbers off of our item 19. And when it comes to break even, obviously I can't speak to that. The one thing that I'm pretty proud about Pirtek and our system of owners is when candidates go through the validation, the mutual validation process, these owners are willing to speak with them from their experience, whether their businesses have been open for 2 months, 3 months, 2 years, 5 years, 7 years. So our candidates that go through are quickly able to back into their own personal pro forma to really see what this thing looks like from a net profitability standpoint.
Yeah, sure. Um, well, I appreciate you sharing that. Now, let's go into support. So that's the biggest reason why somebody chooses a franchise, right? Besides the national brand, which you guys obviously have, as the biggest player in this industry. What does your initial training, and then ongoing support look like?
Yeah, so the initial training, it's a requirement for business before they even open to come to Rockledge, Florida for 2 weeks of training. Whoever is going to be involved in the business. So if there's 2 owners, both those owners are coming in, right? Um, they're also bringing in their technicians that they would have hired because remember, if someone's awarded a business, they sign a franchise agreement. On average, it takes 120 days to lead up to their grand opening with implementing everything, right? So they're getting guidance on what type of individual to hire. So they come to Rockledge, Florida. For the owners come for 2 weeks of training. The techs come for 1 week of training. That
Okay.
first week of training is very technical in nature. Obviously, it's tearing apart machines, cutting hoses, identifying fittings. You're in a classroom setting too. A lot of this, it's not something that you need to know off the top of your head when you pull up to one of these machines because we have a catalog in each van. That catalog is very complete. It helps you identify all the hoses, all the fittings, and how to navigate through those products.
Cool.
That's what the training looks like. The second week of training is for the owners. That's more finance and marketing in nature. The software that we use, the inventory management software, is called Sightline. Built within Sightline is also an invoicing system. Think QuickBooks, right? So you get the training on that. Then you get the training on all of the marketing. I mentioned we time that very close to the grand opening, usually a couple weeks. When you're starting your grand opening, we have a startup team that comes back to your location, so it's fresh. Now
Oh,
they're in the
cool.
field with those techs. They're doing real life work with those techs, and they're spending time with the owner on their business operations, making sure they're all set up from a inventory standpoint, etc. And I mentioned that training in Rockledge is available all year round, 12 months a year. I think the
So,
other benefit too is I touched on the network of owners that we do have, right? It is not uncommon if you are by, which is a huge benefit when you're opening a Pirtek, be by adjacent owner or a neighboring owner. There's synergies there. There's camaraderie there. Hey, I know I can send my guys to Rockledge, but I'm in New York, right? How cool will it be to send my 2 techs over to you to shadow your techs for 2 weeks? Meanwhile, they're absorbing online training, but they're getting real world training with your guys. And then they come back over and they're trained up and they can get into the field and start working. So we also come to all owners' locations 2 times a year. And we'll come up there and go over again how their business is functioning, working with them on their marketing efficiencies and so forth. A lot of layers of support, a lot of layers when it comes to the training component as well. Customer service too. I think it's important to note that we have a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week customer service center. And what I mean by that is these techs are out on the field and they come into an issue that they maybe not have seen before and they're having difficulty navigating through this. They can call. We have a night shift and a day shift that sit right in Rockledge, Florida, that are answering those phones all day. They're on FaceTime with these techs. That they are sending videos and helping them navigate through issues. So there are a lot of layers of support, not only from a training capacity, but also just from a pure operational standpoint too. And then lastly, I'll add, all of our owners have a business consultant for the life of their business, right? So This is somebody that is an industry expert. They work with other Pirtek markets in close proximity. They know your P&L. They're working with you on efficiencies, just real world things, right? So yes, you are running your own business, but we have this framework for you to be successful. And we always say, we've done this over 600 times in 24 different countries. If you follow the system and stay within the framework of what makes a successful Pirtek business, you ultimately will be successful as well.
Yeah. Wow, that's a lot of support. So, uh, just going back over 2 weeks initial training, and then how many techs are coming with you, right? So how many techs do you start off the business with?
You start off with 2 techs. So ultimately, there's going to be a tech in each van. Ultimately, the average van per market, once you get going, is anywhere, depending on the size of the market, 3 to 5 vans, right? So I mentioned about that hour response time or less. Obviously, when your operation is starting out and you have 2 techs, both of those techs may be on a job for 2.5, 3 hours apiece. Well, that response time now, you're managing that conversation over the phone with the client, right? You're
Mm,
calling them back immediately and you're saying, hey, there's a tech in your area. He's going to be there between this window. So that's one way when you start out to manage the hour response time or less. Obviously, as you scale the van size, now you're really cutting down your response time because you have these Pirtek vans all over these markets doing nothing but servicing these clients.
yeah, and that's where the consultant comes in because you want to have a good response time, but you don't want to be paying for guys to sit around, right? So like there's a balance there. Um, Interesting. Okay. Yeah, so you got that. It sounds like it's a lot of B2B sales, so there's not a ton of digital marketing these guys are doing. Is that right?
Yeah. So, what we do from Pertec on a national level, we inundate these markets with advertising. It's predominantly all digital advertising. We're doing the SEO, we're doing the SEM, all the Google, the keyword searches, the social media, email blasts. So yes, the portion that you pay as a franchisee through the marketing department, it's a lot, and it is predominantly digital. Now, it's always encouraged to do more marketing at your local level, right? Um, there's no, I don't think it's a fluke, or there's definitely a correlation with our highest performing owners. They spend a lot more on marketing than maybe the lower tier performers. But yes, to answer your question, Josh, it is predominantly digital advertising.
That's so interesting because I would have thought, if I owned an excavator, I wouldn't click on an ad on Facebook, right?
Yeah.
I'd be like asking other excavator companies who they use or something like
Yeah.
that.
Well, I think that's important. The visibility, whether it's the technical sales representative or the owners, the visibility within that market space that we have customized for an hour drive time. That's why it's so important to cultivate and leverage those relationships, because that really is what's going to pay dividends down the road. And then combined with, as I mentioned, that 85% conversion rate from a one-time service leading into sustainable business is always helpful. So I think it's a combination of definitely visibility, reputation within that community, and digital presence. Because you're right, it's business to business. That's laser
Yeah.
focused advertising. I've been in the landscaping world, so I've seen the shotgun approach to advertising B2C. And you're hoping that maybe it's only six other contractors that I'm trying to save the job by competing against. It is significantly different.
Yeah. 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 That's so interesting. I almost see this like finding like a good operational partner and you have a guy whose just sole job is to go around and like bring donuts to companies.
They do
Um
that a lot. You'd be
yeah.
surprised. Tacos,
Yeah.
donuts, coffee. Yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
you hit the nail on the head there. That is a
Yeah.
strategy.
Yeah. That's what we do, right? So we're a dance, but we do it in schools. So it's like just constantly bringing cookies to these
Yeah.
schools until they let us in. So
Food goes a long way.
yeah. Okay. Cool. And then another thing I think to note is not a lot of franchises go to your location, right? So the fact that you guys do that so much, honestly kind of mind blowing because that costs a lot of money, right?
Mhm.
So the fact that you guys do that is very cool.
Yeah.
Um, and I just wanted to call that out.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about software. Do you have any other like routing software or Well, I guess they're just going straight because they're responding to calls, right? So like, I don't know, is there any type of other software that you guys use?
Not really. The software, our technology software is really just our inventory control system.
Yeah.
It's Sightline is what we use with the invoicing. But as far as software, I mean, that's it. That's the technology. That's the technology portion of it. We are revising. It will be done in October, I believe. Our new CRM tool, which we're excited about. It's going to be highly, highly effective. So that's rolling out here with over the next handful of weeks or so as well.
Is that like a proprietary CRM?
It is, yes. This
Oh, nice.
particular one is, yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think that makes a big difference. You know, people hear about HubSpot and they hear about all this stuff. When you have something that's built for you that is uniform across the
Tool.
franchises, it makes a big difference. So, okay. Let's see. What about, because I tell people, right, the right industry, this is a huge industry, the right franchisor, support and training, um, the right person, right, and the right territory, right? So we haven't hit on those next two. Can you hit on like what makes a really good franchisee for Pirtek?
I can. It's interesting. You would think, hey, this is a dirty hydraulic hose business, right? Okay, who's going to call uh, to want to discuss business ownership within this space? Um, we have a lot of owners from the finance background, the banking background, any type of engineer, mechanical
Yeah.
engineer. Um, Corporate is big, even unrelated, like IT, software sales, right?
Mm.
So, or running multi-million dollar businesses that, hey, I'm tired of working for corporate. We're not getting the individuals that say, I've been turning wrenches for 20 years. And I know that I can run a business. Well, you might not be able to, and God bless you, you're probably very good at the technical side of things. But what we look for in business ownership are those leadership qualities, proven successes, proven backgrounds. Because ultimately, what success is, it's creating a culture that people want to work for you, and in turn, you're able to give them a career path to do greater things. So, good question, but that's what we look for, and actually, that's who we are. That's the type of owner we are attracted.
Okay. So, um, I think if I had to guess, right, it's a lot of what I read online, right, of people, especially like the bankers, right? Because like, what kind of companies do PE buy, right? They buy B2B companies that are in the needed services that are recession resistant.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if I had to have a hunch of why you're seeing those types of people, right? Like, my guess is like that's what it
Yeah.
would be.
Yeah.
Okay. So, do you think it's more important for them to be sales experience or to have sales experience, to be outgoing, or you think it's more important for them to be operational? Do you see owners who are both?
Yeah, I do. I see owners that come in that are both. But even if one is stronger than the other as far as their skill set, that's the beauty of having that option to hire somebody to kind of make up maybe where you're not as proficient in, right? And so that is why we'll have owners come in and say, I know I'm immediately getting a sales rep in here. I'm going to work on the operational side, scaling the business. I'm going to have somebody doing the sale. So I would say, yeah, we have a lot that they're a hybrid of both, but they recognize their weakness and they'll set their business operations up accordingly.
Okay. Yeah, that makes okay. What do you think some of the biggest challenges that uh your franchisees face, and how do you guys help them through it?
So I see I see it. The challenges is one, you're starting a business, right? So this thing is going to be a leap of faith. And I mentioned before that we've done this so many times in so many different countries. There's a playbook in place for our owners to follow. The systems and the processes are there. If you simply follow those and with the skill set and why you're awarded a business, you're going to capitalize on those. I think sometimes owners that get off to maybe a slower start, they're more reactive than proactive within that market. Oh my gosh, I got a robust marketing program in place. I'm going to let that do the work. I'm going to let my vans out there. The visibility, the basically rolling billboards bring in business. That's not necessarily the case. I think with anything, you need to be proactive. So I think the more you or that individual that you've identified to be out in the community, leveraging those sales is ultimately going to lead to success. But the businesses that lack a little bit, that's where it is. It's that engagement, that proactiveness within the community.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Okay. All right. So that was kind of who you're looking for and challenges that they overcome.
Yeah.
So the last piece really is the right territory. I think it's a little bit easier. We kind of talked about it a little bit. Hour drive, a couple thousand businesses that could use this service. Do you see anything else that if someone thinks, hey, I'm in a dense market, I'm in New York City, it's better than Nashville or
Yeah.
whatever the outskirts of Nashville. What makes a great territory?
So obviously our larger major cities and port cities where you have an overwhelming amount of equipment that needs service, those are popular places. We have a lot of ownerships in and around those areas, but the markets that we have set up, we have over 350 markets that we have optimized set up to support a Pirtek business just because of the space that they come from. We have one of our largest owners in the network is out of DeKalb, Illinois. And when he purchased that market, people were like, are you sure? He's one of our highest revenue. He does ag and it's like 80 or 90% ag. So I think at the end of the day, there is a need for a market, no matter what market it is, to service within that industry. And then how you enter the market too. I think that's the difference, right? And what I mean by that is you can enter in one of two ways. One is what we have at tier one operation. It's when you start out with a minimum of the two mobile sales and service vehicles, but you also start out with a brick and mortar location. Now that brick and mortar location is ultimately important for a few different reasons, but the first one is these vans have crimpers on them that go up to an inch and a quarter. Those larger size hoses that we talked about where there's a lot of money, you need larger crimpers. That's where the brick and mortar comes in. Those are typically in a high industrial, high visible area in close proximity of those businesses that are so used to taking off the hoses themselves. A tier one operation that would be beneficial in a larger market, right? So you would probably want to start as a tier one just because the market lends itself to capture that business immediately. Whereas if you're in a smaller market, maybe a more rural market, like we have a gentleman out in Colin out in Bend, Oregon. It made sense for him to start as a tier two operation and then scale up into a brick and mortar. So, I think there's a lot of benefits to a lot of markets just because of the amount of hydraulics and various verticals that are out there. But it just depends on how you start your operations. Is it with that brick and mortar or is it with starting with the mobile and scaling?
Yeah. Interesting. And so what's like the investment difference between those two?
Yeah. So the tier one with a brick and mortar, it looks to be on average about 500 to 550,000 in finance working capital. And then the tier two without the brick and mortar looks to be about 250 to 300,000 in finance working capital. Now the caveat with the tier two is the expectation is by your third year of business, you're scaling into a brick and mortar location because ultimately you're going to scale and want to capture that market share anyway. The majority of the owners that are now entering the system, they're looking for a brick and mortar location within their first year. And then usually being in it by then, or at least their second year. It actually have 38 months, a little over 3 years to get into that location now.
Okay, great. And then, normally people are coming in with about 20%. And you can get an SBA loan for usually 80% of a startup business, right? So at the 500, let's say 600,000 on the high end, right?
Yeah.
It's 120K in savings, or in a retirement account you can use penalty free to invest in your business. Or for the 250,000, right? You're looking at like $50,000.
Sure.
Okay, cool. And then so that's the territory. Sounds like it can work anywhere, which is kind of what I was expecting, to be honest with you. Let's talk a little bit about the future of Pirtek, right? So 3 years, 5 years, what do you think the trajectory of this franchise is going to be?
Yeah, I think it's going to continue to grow rapidly. We have experienced over the past years just rapid amount of growth in qualifying, right? So we're very selective as who we have as owners. So extremely selective, but the type of quality of individual that are coming to Pirtek because of this space has been really impressive to see. I know at the beginning too, I shared the potential of 3.6 billion in the United States is basically the industry, and Pertek's market share is roughly 8-9%. I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon. I mean, there's a massive amount of building, whether it's renovating or infrastructure, kind of you name it. We don't anticipate any type of slow up in this space. So it just seems like we are rapidly getting owners, very good owners in place for business ownership now. And I will tell you that lead flow certainly is not a problem at Pertek. We have a lot of folks inquiring, and I think they're analyzing data too, right? So I mentioned to you, we have a lot of folks from the finance industry or just proven corporate leadership background, and they can do their own analysis and they're willing to make this investment because of what they're seeing as well. So, yeah, I don't anticipate any type of slow up anytime soon.
Very cool. And let's talk about the future of franchisees, right? So people get into a business, usually either their exit plans either to make it a lifestyle business or to sell it, right? Have you all seen exits in the system? And is it to other owners? Is it to private equity?
Yeah.
What does that future for these guys look like?
Yeah, we have. We have seen a few exits in the system. They're multiple territories. Obviously, I can't communicate what the multiples
Sure.
are or were, but they were very good. They're usually 4 markets, that'll be selling. They're at the end of their agreement with Pirtek, which is 10 years, right? So we have seen a few very, very good exits. We anticipate those are ultimately going to go up as well because we have owners that are getting into this or have been into this for 6-7 years. They have 5-6 markets sometimes. So their exits are going to be profitable for them, but you're right. And then anywhere they're in between, that's the beauty of it. If I were, let's just say, well, I can speak from experience with my business. Uh, 5 years into my business, if I wanted to sell it and I was not part of a franchise, I'd probably hire a business broker, right? On average, that broker takes anywhere from 10 to 12% of the sale of the business. If I'm selling my business with Pirtek, I got a pretty good advantage here because I know that they're talking to people that are qualified all the time, looking to get into a Pirtek operation. Well, Pirtek can help me sell it, get a qualified candidate in there, and there are 5%. That's 5% of the sale of your business. So about half of what a business broker would be.
Very good. And so, do you guys allow? Because if I was, say, I had, let's just go off averages, right? Let's say $6 million in revenue. I've got 6 territories. I'm doing a generous net. I want millions of dollars for that business, more than likely, right? That's not just some random guy on the street, and that's way less than $500,000 for a new franchise, right?
Yeah.
So do you allow strategic buyers, private equity, or anything like that to be franchisees? Or is it simply you've got to find an owner who can pony up that much cash?
Yeah. So at this point, we really don't have any type of PE coming in and purchasing up those markets. We don't, and I'm saying currently we don't. Whether that changes, that's over my head if that ever will. I can tell you that whenever we do have a resale or we have in the past, it is extremely competitive. You do have a lot of folks from outside that will come in. We had an example of that take place in Charlotte where this thing went up for sale, and I can't even tell you how many people that week were throwing their names in the hat to buy Charlotte Pirtek. So, yeah, at least currently, we wouldn't do a mass buy to a PE firm.
Okay, but there's candidates who can pony up the money.
Yep,
Okay, great.
absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. And then any markets that you're like, man, we really wish somebody was going to become an owner there, right? What are the markets that would kill it that are still available?
Yeah. So Savannah was a great market. I was surprised that it even was available along with Charleston. Well, those are gone. Those operations will begin in December, January. Right now, Northwest Arkansas is a set up to just be an unbelievable market. It meets
I
all the
believe it.
criteria that we have. It's in a great location, a lot of industry going on there. Um, just a very viable market. Another one is Buffalo, New York. I mean, Buffalo, New York sets up again with all that criteria, a lot of industry and a lot of room to scale to adjacent markets and grow your business. Those would be the two big areas. The other one is we're getting a lot of activity in Eastern Pennsylvania, right outside Philadelphia, even on the Pennsylvania side, that Allentown, King of Prussia area, and even on the New Jersey side and up into New York. But I would say another good area is that Western Pennsylvania market is very good as well. So off the top of my head, those would be what we call hot markets.
Okay, cool. Well, it's September 19th, 2025. If you wait too long, they might be gone.
That's
So,
right.
um, okay. Any last parting words or things that you think people need to know that I didn't ask about Pirtek?
I thought, yeah, that's a lot of great questions. And ultimately, you speak to a lot of people, and individually, they're coming to a point in their life where they need to decide if business ownership is right for them. And if it is, this is a tremendous space and a tremendous time to be in. Our FDD is very strong, and I don't want to sound very, very salesy, but it's a good business, and all the things that we talked about, it being a necessity of a business and a growing one at that.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thanks, Mark. This is the Tracer Franchising Podcast. I'm Josh Emison. If you're interested in finding out if a Pirtek territory is available where you are, or you want to go through the 18-step process we have, it starts with education into matching into thorough due diligence and finally making a decision, please reach out to me. You can go to the website, submit an inquiry. We're starting up a franchise challenge, right? Where you learn everything you need to know about whether this is right for you and how to do the research, even if you want to do it on your own, in just 3 weeks. That's going to be on the website as well. And if you do end up going with me and purchase a franchise that I introduce you to, Tracer Franchising will refund up to $5,000 of your professional fees, because we want to make sure people are doing the right due diligence and paying the lawyers and the CPAs and all that stuff. That's something we see people skimp on. So we'll just we're making that offer because we want to make sure you do what's best for you. So that's it for me. I hope to see you guys on the next episode. Thank you again, Mark, and can't wait hopefully to introduce you to some candidates.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Joshua. Appreciate it.